market. The Egyptian exchange ended today's session in the red amid Egyptian selling. The benchmark KGX30 decreased 0.03% to 4.42 points. It is at 14,815.18 points. Coming up on the show tonight, Ethiopia joins a long list of countries blacklisted by the European Union. Theresa May unveils a $2.1 billion fund for towns that support her Brexit plan. And we take a hit of South Africa's booming cannabis industry. EU governments have refused to endorse the Commission's list of dirty money hotspots after 27 out of 28 member states rallied to block the draft. The revolt comes after the Commission blacklisted 23 nations last month for having massive deficiencies on their anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism financing regulations. Among them were 6 African countries that include Botswana, Ethiopia, Ghana, Libya, Nigeria, as well as Tunisia. Brussels has argued that the list used tough criteria to protect Europe's banking system from illicit cash flows following a series of high-profile money laundering scandals. Let's discuss this further with Coletta Wanjohi, who's live for us in Addis Ababa. Coletta, Ethiopia is among countries blacklisted by the European Commission. What's been the reaction there in Addis to this move? All right, I'm afraid we seem to have a technical glitch with Coletta Wanjohi. We shall try and reconnect with her a little bit later on in this bulletin. Now, let's stay there in Ethiopia. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has encouraged Kenya to tap into the Ethiopian aviation sector. Ethiopia plans to privatize its national carrier as the Prime Minister seeks efficiency in the operation of the continent's largest airline. CGTN's Coletta Wanjohi spoke to Kenneth Kenei, the country manager of Kenya Airways in Ethiopia.
We started operating to Ethiopia in 1978. At that time, we were operating 2 flights a week. Gradually, we went to 3 flights a week. Then we went to 5 flights a week. Then we went to daily flights per week. And to date, we are operating 17 flights a week into and out of Nairobi. Of course, beyond Nairobi, we operate to Far East, Middle East, Europe, and recently our youngest route in town is to JFK, that is New York.
The Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Dr. Abiy Ahmed, has talked about aviation being one of the sectors that are open for investment, especially by the Kenyan community. How exciting is that for Kenya Airways?
Yes, of course, that is exciting news, and I was quite elated to hear this mentioned by Dr. Abiy. It presents opportunities for us to move our frequencies from 17 to hopefully even 28 times a week. And I say this because it presents an opportunity for increased traffic. When there is increased aviation investment in Ethiopia, that means there is increased traffic between Addis and Nairobi. And that, of course, gives me an upper hand as an operator operating to Nairobi. We are only 2 operators operating to Nairobi on a daily basis. That is Kenya Airways and ET. And if there is more investments in the aviation sector, then it really presents a huge opportunity for me as Kenya Airways.
Beyond being competitors on the runway, do we have any cooperation between Ethiopian Airlines and Kenya Airways?
Within the African continent, the African carriers only control less than 20% of the market share. 80% are controlled by foreign airlines. And the reason why I look at Ethiopian Airlines as a partner is we complement each other's efforts in terms of trying to grab some business to remain within the African carrier operating within Africa. That is, of course, Ethiopian and Kenya Airways being major players. And of course, the presence of Ethiopian Airlines Aviation School also, and the presence of Kenya Airways Training School, the Pride Center in Kenya, gives us an opportunity to, 1, exchange ideas, 2, ease our costs in terms of training costs. We save a lot because Ethiopia is just 2 hours away from Nairobi, and exchanging technology, exchanging our spare parts, exchanging knowledge and exchanging expertise gives us an upper hand over other airlines that still rely on, for example, flying to Europe to maintain their aircrafts and all those.
We are now seeing Kenya and Ethiopia speaking more about implementing the 2012 Special Status Agreement that is supposed to enable them to do more business together. What are some of the issues that you hope this agreement will iron out, especially for your operations from Ethiopia?
I think with this bilateral opening right now, it will present a very good opportunity for us to ease the way we do business out of Ethiopia, how we repatriate our monies from Ethiopia to Kenya. It will be a thing of the past, and I'm really hoping that this is actually fast-tracked because it's been a major bottleneck for us as Kenya Airways and also other airlines operating out of Ethiopia.
All right, so we have reconnected with Coletta Wanjohi live in Addis Ababa. Coletta, hopefully this time you can hear me.
I can hear you very well, Penina.
Perfect. So I was asking, Ethiopia is among countries blacklisted by the European Commission. What's been the reaction there in Addis Ababa to this?
Well, Penina, we have not got any official statement yet from the government, but I can tell you this does not come as a shocker, because already when the Prime Minister came into power, Dr. Abiy Ahmed, in around March of 2018, he declared that economic reforms were part of the reforms that he was gearing towards. And we saw him meeting bankers, for example, early this year, and telling them that there needs to be changes in the regulations and policies in the banking sector and the financial sector. And we also saw him making some changes of governance, especially in the central bank. We got a new governor after he came into power, and we also saw him changing officials in the two government-owned or state-owned banking institutions. And we've also seen the new governor speaking out and saying that business cannot go on as usual like it did 15 or 16 years ago. And he meant there needs to be modernization of the financial sector, and there needs to be better practices in order to bolster Ethiopia forward. So this news comes as Ethiopia is already working on economic reforms.
So, Coletta, the European Commission has been saying that these blacklisted countries have massive deficiencies in their anti-money laundering and counter-terrorist financing regimes. What exactly does the EU want these countries to implement? What's lacking in their regimes?
Well, Penina, what is lacking is the transparency and also modernization in terms of financial systems. But the European Union is stressing that there needs to be better transparency. There needs to be practices and legal frameworks that these countries must put in place to ensure that financial transactions within their state-owned, whether state-owned or private institutions, financial institutions, are transparent and they actually represent what is being done. For example, the European Union will be expecting these countries to ensure that they do due diligence to customers and financial institutions to ensure that the financial transactions they do really do not involve the transfer of any suspicious money flows. And we're also expecting that they'll also be expected to ensure that they put in place legal frameworks, strict legal frameworks, to ensure that their financial institutions are managed well and can easily be monitored both within the country and also internationally. So all the European Union is asking that clean up your house as far as the financial institutions are concerned, make it modern, make it maybe more credit worthy, make people more credit worthy, and ensure that transactions are legal.
So, Coletta, luckily for these countries that have been blacklisted, the EU governments have refused to endorse that. But hypothetically speaking, what kind of effect would such a ban likely have on Ethiopia's reform plan and its drive to attract investors?
Well, the good news about this whole thing is that with the pronunciation, it does not block Ethiopia from having any investment dealings with the European Union. It can still go on. But it also becomes a wake-up call. Okay, Ethiopia was already up on the whole issue, but it enables Ethiopia to fasten its economic reforms. Already we've seen Ethiopia getting a thumbs up or a vote of confidence from the World Bank, which in October of 2018 agreed to give Ethiopia $1.2 billion, half of that in grants and half of that in loans, and part of this money will be used for modernizing the financial sector in Ethiopia and ensuring that accountability is also tops. So we already have confidence from the World Bank on Ethiopia on the economic reforms that are being done. So what Ethiopia has to do internally, it has to ensure that it cleans up its financial systems, ensures that its banks are at par with the international requirements as far as transparency is concerned, and also probably bring to book some of the people who are misusing the financial sectors and putting out financial flows which are illicit deficit. And we're also expecting that Ethiopia will also up its game as far as investment is concerned. We've seen the Prime Minister speaking up strongly to the investment authority here and telling them that they need to cut out the bottlenecks that are, or the bureaucratic bottlenecks that are stopping people from investing. And this includes some of the shoddy deals as far as financial transfer is concerned. So it's just a wake-up call. Ethiopia is just already on the economic reforms, and it will just continue, probably this time at a faster pace.
All right, Coletta, thank you for that update. Coletta Wanjohi live in Addis Ababa. Up next, a look at your company roundup. Administrators of Kenya's troubled mining company ARM Cement have extended the deadline for the submission of final buyout bids to mid-March. The move came after suitors asked for more time to complete their due diligence and assess what would be a fair price for the Nairobi Securities Exchange listed firm. South Africa's Competition Commission has recommended the tribunal to conditionally approve Glencore's proposed acquisition of Chevron South Africa. The commission says the proposed transaction of the deal has raised public interest concerns in the country. The deported CEO of MTN Uganda has sued the country's Attorney General in his lawsuit filed before the Ugandan High Court. The Belgian national is challenging his deportation on grounds that it was irrational and illegal. The court is yet to allocate his case file to a judge for the hearing. And finally, Chinese tech giant Huawei's CFO Meng Wanzhou has launched a civil lawsuit against the Canadian government and its border agency over her high-profile detention. Meng claims they detained, searched and interrogated her before telling her she was under arrest. The Chinese executive is currently out on bail and living in Vancouver, awaiting extradition proceedings. And that's a look at your corporate headlines. You're watching Global Business. Coming up, growing tensions between Uganda and Rwanda threatening trade between the two countries. And Eastern company shares up 5% at opening on Egypt Stock Exchange.
The world economy as we know it is about to change. Global business reports highlight emerging markets, developing countries, and dynamic sectors worldwide. We feature top analysts and newsmakers to provide perspectives on every facet of business. From an on-the-ground perspective, we provide you with balanced and objective assessments. Fast, sharp, and insightful. Global Business, only on CGTN.
Data out of the country. The country's foreign currency reserves.
With a dedicated and diverse team of anchors, CGTN now brings Africa to the palm of your hand.
I'm Penina Karibe in the heart of Nairobi, which is bustling.
From everyday heroes to the continent's most powerful figures, we bring their voices to you.
We never changed. And this is something most of us are very excited about.
We bring you news that's changing perspectives. News that brings Africa to the world. CGTN. See the difference.
Every story starts out like this.
Okay. We'll head up now.
But beyond the rush of the numbers, there's always a more fundamental question. What happened? Who has been affected? When market-moving decisions are made, who's responsible? And why?
Let's get some reaction on ground. Joining us in Johannesburg is Sutra Nairobi. Hello, Nairobi.
This is how all stories begin. See how they end. Only on Global Business.
There's more to this place than just glorious landscapes. There's more to it than just, say, Table Mountain or glorious, endless salt flats. There's more to it than countries that are home to some of the deepest mines in the world. There is so much more to this place, even if it is home to some of the finest diamonds on the planet. It is the sheer diversity of the people who call Southern Africa home, and the relentless drive to make it a better place that make it so special. And we know that because this too is home. No one knows Southern Africa like we do. CGTN, see the difference.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues for taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
On to Somalia now, and the country is seeking to attract more foreign investors in its booming construction industry, among other fields. CGTN's Abdulaziz Bilo caught up with a group of businessmen from Egypt at a recently concluded expo in the Somali capital, Mogadishu.
These Egyptian investors are in Somalia to boost trade relations between the two Arab League members. Leading construction companies are among those that attended this expo in Mogadishu. Abdulrahman Elmi is the managing director of Green Modeling Contracting, a multi-billion-dollar construction company that has embarked on mega projects in Egypt and the Middle East. Elmi says his company hopes to invest in the construction projects in most parts of Somalia, as the Horn of Africa nation seeks to rebuild key roads and major transit hubs destroyed during the civil war.
We're already working in Egypt, and we're working in KSA and UAE, Dubai, and UK. Between Somalia and Egypt, it's good relation. And in Egyptian good, the Somali it's good, no problem. And now the safety is good in Somalia, and very potential here, because the old project and mega project here, and the potential is very good. And inshallah, we open the branch here to make some project here.
Somalia mainly imports medicine, foodstuffs, heavy machinery and construction materials from Egypt. Business companies from both countries have established the Egypt-Somalia Investment Partnership, a platform that seeks to rekindle a decades-long trade cooperation between Cairo and Mogadishu.
The relation between Egypt and Somalia is fantastic since ever, and it's historical as well. So back to the pharaohs, Hatshepsut, the queen. So we are here just to retain the relation with Somalia, because Somalia also has a very strategic location in Africa. And personally, I believe in Somalia will be booming very much in the coming 10 to 20 years. We are here today just to offer you our experience, and maybe we can imitate it a little bit. So we are looking for local suppliers and local partners in Somalia to work with us in the mega projects.
The North African nation has also expressed interest in livestock trade, Somalia's principal source of revenue. Since 2016, Somali traders have been exporting camels to Egypt, among other Arab countries. And with newfound stability, experts say that trade volumes between the two countries would likely to boost in the coming years.
Egypt is one of the main trade partners to Somalia. And according to the official numbers, last year the trade volume between the two countries was about $100 million. And we expect this number to double or triple in the coming few years, as we see a lot of Egyptian companies coming to Somalia recently.
Egyptian investors have also expressed interest in capitalizing on the fishing industry, as they plan to establish trade centers for their goods here in the capital, Mogadishu. Cairo also provides scholarship opportunities each year to students as part of its assistance program to Somalia. Several schools in the country also practice the Egyptian education curriculum. Since taking office in 2017, Somali President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo has visited Cairo on several occasions to boost bilateral ties. and urged for more investment in his country as it seeks to strengthen its weak economy and create more job opportunities for its youthful population. Abdulaziz Bilal, CGTN, Mogadishu, Somalia.
To Rwanda now, where the government has deployed heavily armed personnel along its borderlines with Uganda, trucks and buses from Uganda have been blocked from crossing into or out of the East African country. The deployment is set to signal further escalation of diplomatic tensions between the two nations. Let's get more details from CGTN's Michael Baleke, who is in Uganda's capital, Kampala. Michael, what is the genesis of these tensions between Uganda and Rwanda?
Late 90s, the Battle of Kisangani is very vivid in many people's minds. When Uganda and Rwanda actually fought and about 1,000 troops died, mostly Ugandans. Then many dissidents from Rwanda's past are believed to have fled to Uganda. And according to the Rwanda Foreign Affairs Minister, most of these people have been plotting to overthrow the Kigali government, and the Kigali government has told Uganda to hand them over, but they believe Uganda has been reluctant to do this. And the foreign minister also says this has been, of course, followed by allegations of torture, what they call arbitrary arrests of Rwandan citizens in Uganda, who they allege were spying in Uganda. And of course, Uganda has outrightly, Penina, denied these allegations. Now the border dispute is here, and the Uganda spokesperson says Rwanda has actually not written any complaint as to why they have closed the border. But he says Uganda and Rwanda actually share a cordial relationship. Uganda is also asking Rwanda why its citizens, of course, are not crossing into the country, yet they're not a security threat. Penina?
All right, so Michael, the border you're talking about is that Gatuna border post, one of the busiest transit routes in the region, which, by the way, serves travelers to and from Uganda, Kenya, and even South Sudan. It is now closed, like you said. Kigali says the closure is to allow for the completion of the one-stop border, which has been delayed for 2 years. 2 years, Michael. What's causing the delay?
Well, Penina, that is according to the official statement from the Rwandan Revenue Authority to the Ugandan government. This communication came in hours after the border was closed. Uganda was asking why they were told hours after the border was closed, when actually they should have probably said this a month before. But we have talked to some motorists who have used the crossings, and they have said actually nothing. There's no construction going on. But of the official statement, of course, Penina told Uganda that they should use other border crossings. And when the motorists went to Chanika and the Mirama Hills, the other crossings, they found the same thing was happening. We have had people coming in from Rwanda saying that, of course, no work. There's no work on the road to Gatuna. Of course, a weekly market in the Kisoro-Chanika side last week, where both Rwandans and Ugandans meet to sell merchandise with each other. The Rwandans were not allowed to come into Uganda. School children who stay on the borderline with Uganda on the Rwandan side, study in Uganda, they were not allowed to come in. However, there are reports that some trucks have been allowed to go through to access the Rwanda border. Some of these trucks were carrying fresh food, but many others remain stranded. Many truck drivers remain stranded, and we're not sure what criteria is being used to allow some trucks through.
There's a thriving trade, Michael, between Uganda and Rwanda. How much of these tensions affected that trade?
Penina, I talked to an economic analyst today who told me the situation has a potential to trigger an economic crisis in the region. Why? Because some of the trucks that have been denied entry from Uganda are not Ugandan. Some of these trucks are transiting through Uganda from the Mombasa border. Some are heading to Burundi, some are heading to the DRC, and others are going to Western Tanzania. Most of East Africa, including Rwanda, Burundi, and the DRC, depend on Uganda for food. So Rwandans are likely to run out of supplies if this situation continues. Most border communities depend on each other. Now the children cannot come to school. Ugandan traders cannot sell their products to Rwanda. The business community has lost time and money Penina. So this is not just a Ugandan and Rwandan problem. It is likely to become an East African problem.
And yet, Michael, on Friday, we saw that spat playing out on social media between foreign affairs ministers of both countries. At this point, is there anything being done to resolve this spat between Uganda and Rwanda?
Penina, the situation can be solved diplomatically, but looks like the channels are not working, or we're not sure if they are working or not. Starting with the two principles, Penina, of Rwanda and Uganda, their silence is obvious. The East African community presidents are also silent. The East African Parliament has not come out to say anything. So everyone is watching at the expense of the business community, the local person who do not care about politics, but about their next supper, their next school fees. But the Uganda government spokesperson says both countries share cordial relations. And the hiccup is temporary, according to him, and it's just a misunderstanding that will go away, but we're yet to see that, Penina.
All right, Michael Baleke on the line for us from Kampala. Many thanks. Now, after more than a 6-month delay, the Egyptian government has released a second offering of 4.27% stake of Eastern Company in the stock market. The listing was a success with 1.8 times oversubscription. The government had previously delayed its privatization plan because of the slowdown in emerging markets economies and exit of foreign investors last year. Let's now get more details from Yasser Hakim. He's live for us from the Egyptian capital, Cairo. So let's talk about this IPO, Yasser. How was the uptake?
Well, the feedback was very successful for the public IPO, which started on Sunday, and it's been first there was the private displacement by the Eastern Company, tobacco company, and it has managed to oversubscribe by 1.8 times. And that was extremely positive for the government. Even the price of the shares has increased by 4.5% at the end of the day. And during the day, it reached even 5.9%, which is a very high average on the day. So it's a reflection of the strong showing of this company in the first one to be relisted in the stock market on this week after, like you said, a 6-month delay.
And yet, Yasser, we know that the Eastern Company is the first to be floated in this process. Which other companies are earmarked in this process?
Well, Penina, there are two types of companies that will be listed. Other companies like Eastern Tobacco are doing a secondary offering. So they had listed before, they have sold shares before. And there will be more coming up in the next week or two from those secondary offerings. I will name a few, such as the Bank of Alexandria, the Sidi Krir Petrochemicals, and Egypt Aluminium. Those are 3 of the 8 that are expected to be going on a secondary offering in the next couple of weeks and then or month, and then there will be the Ramadan and the summer vacation, and probably in September they will resume. As for the companies that will have an IPO for the first time, state-owned companies completely that will have their very first IPO, the government said it will be in next September and will be 1 IPO per month. And a number of these companies are the Alexandria Containers and Cables Holdings, the Abu Qir Fertilizers, and Heliopolis Housing, amongst others.
And Yasser, are these IPOs, I see you're having a problem with your earpiece, are these IPOs, Yasser, restricted to local investors? I'm sorry, are they restricted to local investors, or are they open to foreign investors as well?
Yes, the foreign investors actually, if you look at the Eastern Tobacco Company, the foreign investors were about, the non-Egyptian were 94%. So that's even much higher than expected, the demand from the non-Egyptians. 70% from those are foreigners and 30% are Arabs. And that leaves about 6% only for Egyptians. And this is a shot of confidence for the economy. As you know, in the last 6 months, the foreign investors have been exiting emerging markets like the Egyptian market and Turkey, and preferring to invest their money in the US, for example. And this kind of reaction shows that they are willing to come back strong to emerging markets like Egypt and invest their money back into these markets, and is giving a lot of confidence for the government as it tries to enlist even more companies in the IPOs in the future.
All right, Yasser Hakim, live in Cairo. Many thanks for that update. Now, Nigeria's local oil firm, ITER, is working with authorities to investigate what may have caused last weekend's explosion at one of its operations. So far, it has inspected and secured all the oil wells and facilities in the area. CGTN's Kelechi Mekalam tells us more.
A statement issued by the company indicates that although the cause of the fire is yet to be established, it has launched an investigation to determine what happened. They debunked earlier reports that the 97-kilometer pipeline, which carries an average 150,000 barrels of crude oil per day, was affected. They say the facilities were in fact shut down on February 28th before the incident. It took nearly 24 hours to put out the ravaging fire. Residents had fled their homes, 50 of whom were reported missing. Fleeing residents had said the fire had heavily polluted the air and water. The company says no one died. Homes and properties too remain intact. Crude oil theft, sabotage and aging pipelines are some of the reasons known for such fire outbreaks. It may take weeks and maybe even months to ascertain the cause of the incident. Kelechi Mekalam, CGTN, Abuja, Nigeria.
China's top political advisory body has kicked off its annual meeting focusing on setting the nation's direction for the coming year. The event comes as the world's second-largest economy begins to lose steam amid lingering tension from the trade war with the U.S. and slowing domestic consumption. From Beijing, here's CGTN's Uche Okoronkwo.
The two sessions are in full swing as the National Political Advisory Board gives their proposals on the economic and political direction of the country in the coming year. Now, this year will be a little bit different. While last year's focus was on the consolidation of President Xi Jinping's leadership and the removal of term limits, this year the world is watching for policy direction on three main areas. One of them is U.S. and China relations, as the two try to negotiate their way out of a trade war. The other is growth forecasts as an economic slowdown in the country starts to hit home. And another is a new foreign investment law that could see the country lowering barriers in various industries and regions. Now, so far, the CPPCC has hinted at greater positive progress this year. Some of their major tasks include improving democratic oversight and political consultations, a focus on fighting potential risks, poverty and pollution, as well as friendlier ties with the EU and Africa going forward. Uche Okoronkwo, CGTN, Beijing, China.
As we gear up for the annual two sessions in Beijing, we take a look at Chinese relations with different African countries. CGTN's Yasser Hakim highlights trade relations between China and Egypt.
Chinese trade and investments with Egypt has seen a major leap in the last 5 years. This is owed to close ties between Chinese President Xi Jinping and his Egyptian counterpart Abdel Fattah el-Sisi.
China focuses on certain sectors, mainly in manufacturing industries. There are more than 1,300 Chinese companies in Egypt, and more are planning to enter the market soon. China also has its own industrial city called Jeddah at the Suez Canal. This is all part of the Belt and Road Initiative launched by the Chinese president, in which Egypt is an active member.
Chinese products fill the Egyptian market with everything, from mobile phones to house appliances and cars. And Chinese President Xi Jinping had also pledged during his last visit to Cairo that bilateral trade and investments would exceed $20 billion by 2021.
Investment deals were signed in the range of $30 billion, some of them in the new capital, others in infrastructure, an electric train to link Cairo with the new capital, as well as solar energy projects in Aswan. Chinese exports to Egypt reached $6.5 billion and increasing, as Egypt is considered a big consumer market in the region.
Tourism also witnessed a considerable boom. Chinese visitors to Egypt have increased from 50,000 in 2013 by nearly tenfold in 2018. As a sign of China's special status, the government is planning to establish what it calls the China Division in the government, the first of its kind for a single country here. Yes, Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
You're watching Global Business. Coming up, Theresa May unveils a $2.1 billion fund for towns that supported her Brexit plan. And we'll bring you what you can expect from China's 2 sessions in Beijing.
Business in Africa is at a crossroads. We celebrate those who are adopting and thriving despite the challenges, from grassroots to big businesses. Global Business takes you along for the ride as we track the making of a giant. Only on CGTN.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself? If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are these stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Let's have a look at other top stories of the day. We begin in Algeria, where pressure is mounting on President Abdelaziz Bouteflika not to seek another term in office. In a letter read out by his campaign manager, the ailing Bouteflika said he would call for early elections if re-elected in April's presidential vote. Bouteflika's actual whereabouts and health condition remain largely unknown, even as massive protests against his re-election bid continue in the country. The annual session of China's National People's Congress will begin on Tuesday morning in Beijing. US-China trade war and the recently concluded US-DPRK summit will be at the top of the agenda in that session. Venezuela's self-proclaimed interim president, Juan Guaido, has returned to his home country despite the risk of being arrested. The Supreme Court placed a travel ban on Guaido after he proclaimed his interim presidency. Guaido, who has been recognized by over 50 countries, has called on President Nicolas Maduro to step down. And that's a look at the day's top stories. To the UK now, where Prime Minister Theresa May has unveiled plans for a $2.1 billion fund to help boost growth in Brexit-supporting communities. The opposition Labour Party is branding the move as a Brexit bribe. It's called the Stronger Towns Fund and is seen by May's critics as a way to garner support for her deal from the opposition. But the Conservative government shot back, saying the funds will be used for skills training and to create new jobs in areas that didn't experience a fair share of economic prosperity. As I mentioned a little earlier on the show, the second session of China's National People's Congress is set to open in Beijing on Tuesday. The largely ceremonial gathering of nearly 3,000 representatives is expected to reveal details on Beijing's economic growth target, as well as new laws on foreign investment. Here's CGTN's Wang Tongshuan with the details.
Voices to be heard. Nearly 3,000 deputies gathering in the capital Beijing, representing the public. They will attend the annual session of National People's Congress. NPC spokesperson Zhang Yesui briefed media ahead of the event.
The session will stay committed to party leadership, the running of the country by the people, and law-based governance, and earnestly perform its functions stipulated in the Constitution and the law. It will be a democratic, results-oriented, and inspiring session of unity.
Trade and economy especially grabbed reporters' attention. Confronted with uncertainties in the domestic and global markets, how can China turn pressure into momentum? Here's John's commenting on China-US trade tensions.
If history teaches us anything, that is, both sides stand to gain from cooperation and lose with confrontation, and cooperation is the best option for both sides. To use the old Cold War mentality to deal with new challenges in this globalized world is just not the right way to go.
Deputies have always been sure to keep their attention on the livelihoods of people. The past year saw an increase of over 13 million jobs, individual income taxes reduced, and nearly 14 million Chinese citizens escaping from poverty. Zhang says China's expectation for a better life has brought new tasks for the legislature to work on.
In this new year, in general, the Standing Committee will continue to carry out its legislative responsibility in a sound, democratic, and law-based manner, and improve the quality of legislation, accelerate the lawmaking process.
Plenty always remains to be done when it comes to government work, whether it be economy, healthcare, or the living environment. Deputies have their work cut out for them in this year's meeting. Fang Xuan, CGTN.
Giant technology company Apple is set to launch a game subscription service. The company is not commented, but multiple sources claim it's been talking to publishers since last year about a Netflix-type offering for games. How would it work and why now? CGTN's Phil Lavelle reports from Los Angeles.
Take Apple, Netflix, a bit of gaming, DNA, and what do you get? Truth is, nobody knows, not for sure, but the tech world is certainly talking a lot about it right now.
I think it would be huge if Apple got into this side of the market.
Few are privy to what goes on inside Apple's secretive HQ, but behind the glass, apparently, a gaming revolution is being planned.
I think the games are really lucrative and that Apple is seeing that.
Multiple anonymous sources reporting that Apple is planning to launch a gaming streaming service, having started talks with publishers last year. The theory is that this would follow the Netflix model, where you pay a monthly subscription and you get access to a catalogue of TV shows and movies, or the Spotify model, where you get the same but with music. Apple's apparent idea to do that with games. All you can play as long as you pay.
I think that they're starting to get into a lot of areas that don't rely solely on the iPhone.
Officially the world's most valuable company, again by some measures, but realizing it can't rely on iPhone sales in a saturated marketplace and when it's not taking over China in the way it hoped.
The iPhone X is really expensive right now, and people are trying to hang on to that as long as they can without replacing it. And that means that Apple's revenue is going to kind of slow a little. So they're trying to find another way to sort of, supplement that.
Which is where services come in, charging for things like cloud storage, apps, mobile payments, insurance, that kind of thing. On top of that, original TV programming, we know that's in the works, and apparently also a subscription model for its news service, set to launch very soon.
They know that investors love subscriptions. I mean, subscriptions really get investors going when it comes to, putting more money into acquisitions or things like that.
The App Store has been a huge success for Apple. It made more than $1 billion over the holiday season, more than $322 million on New Year's Day alone.
We get a whole new section of gamers that are just untapped and are waiting to be catered to.
Which explains why this could be such a big deal for Apple. Trouble is, there is competition on the scene. This market is already overcrowded. If this is true, and I stress if because Apple never gives anything away, but if it does happen, how much of an impact could they seriously make?
I think that the impact would be seen on what kinds of exclusive games they get. The only way that this could work, and of course Apple is still kind of just exploring their options, would be what kind of games they can offer on their Surface exclusively. If they can't get the games, then the impact will be negligible.
As always, no comment from Apple. It never responds to speculation, but the company that boasted of this.
Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone.
Hoping apparently to reinvent this too and win. Phil Lavelle, CGTN, Los Angeles.
The annual carnival in Venice is in full swing. This year's theme, Blame the Moon, is inspired by the 50th anniversary when humans first landed on the moon. And even though there are many carnivals taking place around the world during this season, Venetian Venetians say their event is unique as visitors become stars themselves. Mikhail Bardavid is in Venice with more.
History, culture, music, and costumes. Combine them all and you've got the Venice Carnival. Every year, thousands from around the world flock to Venice for this festival, packed with daily events that hardly leave enough time to explore the treasures around the city. But many Venetians say that attending the Venice Carnival is not enough. They say, to feel it, one must participate in the carnival. One of the best experiences of the carnival can be achieved inside an authentic atelier where costumes are available for rent or purchase. Handmade costumes are prepared by Venetian tailors, each with beautiful accessories that are completed with masks to hide one's identity. Fabio Momo is the co-founder of the Tiepolo Atelier, which also organizes the Tiepolo Ball.
In Brazil, so you have wonderful shows of costume. Here, but you look at the show. Great, but you look at the show. Here, when you wear a costume, you are at the center of the attention. You are the show.
Johann, a German tourist who has been attending the carnival for the last 15 years, is enjoying posing like a star, or in this case, like the moon.
The spirit in Venice is still there, the spirit of carnival, and people really want to make beautiful costumes and kind of artistic costumes, and when you meet people in the street, everybody's so happy to see wonderful costumes, and that's fantastic.
Fabio says the balls that take place during the carnival are unique in nature.
The party with the costume is an elegance. You can recreate an atmosphere very elegant that without costume is not possible.
As the sun sets in Venice, quiet returns to the streets and people start to get ready to attend special events. And when the night begins, guests are greeted by red carpets and glasses of Prosecco, Italian white wine.
Balls of the Venice Carnival are exclusive and tend to take you back in time, as costumes are mandatory to enter the party. This one is taking place inside the famous Pisani Moretta Palace that was built in the 15th century, and music chamber welcomes guests with classical pieces.
To make the night even more mesmerizing, guests relish a meal within a candlelit saloon. If it weren't for the smartphone capturing selfies, a scene that could certainly be mistaken for one of ancient Venice. Mikhail Bardavid, CGTN, Venice.
Let's have a look at the commodities market. Gold fell to the lowest in more than 5 weeks today as the dollar held firm and investors opted for riskier assets in hopes of a thaw in a trade dispute between the US and China. The metal tumbled 2.6% last week, its biggest weekly fall in over 1.5 years. And analysts at Commerce Bank say gold could lose further ground if data at the end of the week points to an improvement in the US labor market. Still ahead on Global Business. Take a hit of South Africa's booming cannabis industry. And Cote d'Ivoire empowers its future women leaders in various sectors.
Images may appear to be identical, but looks can be deceiving. The difference is not always obvious. It has to be discovered. There are always different sides to a story. We put the focus on the details. To see more, to understand better. CGTN. See the difference.
The greatest journeys. The greatest sights. The greatest adventures.
Here in Qanater, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
You don't find the stories of North Africa by sitting on the sidelines. No one else will take you where we can in North Africa. And no one else will show you what it's all about. CGTN, see the difference.
To South Africa now, where the budding cannabis industry is starting to gain momentum. Recently, there's been an increase in applications for farm licenses in small manufacturing facilities. More cannabis-based products used as supplements or alternative medicine are being imported into the market. CGTN's Julie Shire reports.
Just 6 months ago, cannabis in any form was illegal in South Africa. Since the laws around private use were relaxed, it's paved the way for an alternative medical industry. Demands for medicinal cannabis is booming around the world. In Africa, Lesotho is the first country to license the cultivation of marijuana for medicine, and South African farmers are hoping to also cash in on the prized crop.
We've got 28 applicants at the moment, and this is purely for research and export purposes only. In order for you to export, you're going to need an offtake agreement, and this is something that we've already put into place, with Canada, Israel, and the Netherlands. So we'll be producing and farming here in South Africa, but everything that is produced here will be going out to export.
There's been no further change in policy since the watershed ruling in September, but many companies have hedged their bets and done the groundwork on producing cannabis oils, supplements, and other products.
These companies took a view, and most of them have been in existence for the last 2 years, specifically in CBD and understanding cannabinoids in the medical market. And a lot of health practitioners have been working with the space for a few years.
The cannabis industry seems set to take off in the next 18 months. There's already been a flurry of small businesses sprouting up across South Africa.
Julie Shire, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
Côte d'Ivoire has hosted a women's employment and entrepreneurship forum in the country's capital, Abidjan. The forum, which was a prelude to International Women's Day, focused on female empowerment and leadership. Take a look.
This event was attended by women leading in the fields of health, media, culture and business. Under the theme, Women Taking the Lead, this meeting was also a unique platform for networking, capacity building and raising awareness around issues women face in employment and entrepreneurship. It was above all an opportunity for women leaders to encourage younger generations to pursue their dreams.
I always wanted to be a journalist, but I was directed to the faculty of law. I thought my dream was shattered. It was really difficult for me. I tried everything I could to go to a communication school to no avail, but I never gave up. I went all the way, and it is with the help of certain people that I became who I am. I would tell women to set goals, dreams and ambitions and go all the way. Establish strategies and ways to achieve these dreams.
Today, it's a real pity that education does not have its rightful place in society. No society can develop without an adequate education system. Sadly, society always tends to remind us that we are women. I believe I can do anything, no matter my gender. I can decide to travel and learn as much as men do. We can achieve anything. It's just a matter of taking our education seriously, that we try to learn from others, and also that we share what we've learned from others.
We should not focus on what people say to minimize us as women. We must close our eyes to all of this. You have to know how to improve your skills to achieve these objectives. That's how you become a hardworking woman who inspires respect.
Akisi Delta is the founder of an audio-visual production company. She has produced several successful films in Côte d'Ivoire and throughout West Africa. To celebrate International Women's Day on March 8, she wanted to deliver a message to all women.
I would like to tell my sisters, we must be as close as family members. We have to show solidarity. We mustn't let a woman suffer. If all women come together in spirit of solidarity, we will see that the world will be better. Africa is already doing better because women are rising, and we must continue to fight, and the authorities must support us in our activities, and we will fight harder for the advancement of our continent.
According to a survey, women's entrepreneurship has boosted the status of women in several African countries in recent years. Many of them hope that the upcoming International Women's Day will be yet another opportunity to claim their rights. Shonela Lupuwana, CGTN.
And finally, let's have a look at the currencies. The Ugandan shilling stabilized today on the back of a slowdown in demand for dollars from commercial banks and merchandise importers. The shilling strengthened despite a diplomatic spat between Uganda and Rwanda that we talked about earlier on in this bulletin. And we'll leave it there tonight on Global Business. We welcome your feedback. Send it to the contacts on the screen and follow us on our digital media platforms. I am Tina Kariba. Thank you for your company.